Welcome back to Elley Knows Rocks, everybody. Last week, you saw me geek out over sea life, and this week, I get to go visit a ruby mine. So thank you so much for being part of my adventure, and let's go see what we find. Badass boat. Now, I got to be put on the James Bond, mega stealth boat. Basically, this thing can be slammed into the ocean and it'll survive. And the reason we're on it is because the ferry boat straight across from us didn't have enough room, and they also didn't have a second one to be able to take us to the ruby mine. So we got the smaller, stealth, James Bond style boat. But I guess if we were in the movie, we'd be considered the villains because James Bond is always in this open cockpit wooden boat. Anyways, you guys get the picture. But we are following the yellow taxi boat, and as we're starting to pull out of the harbor, this is one of the Danish Navy boats. These things are icebreakers. They can actually physically break up icebergs in the front of their boat so it doesn't hurt them, and they don't sink like the Titanic. On this trip, we get to go through what is called the falls, this rough business behind us. Essentially, it's the Atlantic Ocean hitting the mouth of a river, and this is my crew looking at it. Apparently, it can be very dangerous and create some really big swells, so of course they had to film it. Don't they look cozy right there together? As soon as we get to the mine dock, there is an assembly line of people coming off the ferry boat. They're gathering all of their supplies and people's luggage and putting them in an assembly line in order to get them to shore so that nobody has to work too hard. It's a great system, and it seemed pretty efficient while we were there. The bus ride that we took from the water's edge into the mine was actually quite long and didn't do well for my small bladder. However, I managed. But I got to see the actual countryside and some of the rocks along the way. Big glacial cut features in mostly metamorphic rocks. People coming in off the boat stay here anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, and you go through rigorous security checks. One when you get there to make sure you don't have contraband, and one anytime you go to or from the mine. In case you're wondering where we are, we're at a mine called Appletok. The translation means red in Greenlandic. This mine is owned by True North Gems.
And this is my little bitty room at the mining camp. My bed was up in the air tilted. Fix that. The bathroom / shower combo. Very Danish thing. But they're like dorm rooms. So hallway, exit, hallway down there. Ta-da! So this is my bed for the next 2 nights. Cute. I just gotta make it now.
This is the view from the back of my dorm room area. You go outside and you have the beautiful wilderness. While I was checking everything out, our crew was checking in with the mine manager, but they're about to come back with some news that puts a real damper on my spirits.
So far, this is extremely frustrating. We're at a ruby mine and we can't keep anything.
But with that being said, I'm about to go on my very first helicopter ride ever. I get to go check out an aerial view of the mine before I step foot in it. I'm a little freaked out, but super excited. The crew is just going over all the details to make sure what we're going to film, that we're going to be safe, all that kind of stuff. And in the meantime, I'm taking pictures. They're making sure none of the camera gear is going to mess with the helicopter instruments. And of course, you can see we are all super excited to get in the air. I think Ben was thrilled he had shotgun. And here we are about to take off. Not for everybody who's ever been in a helicopter, it's not that impressive. But for me, this was super exciting. I've been in lots of planes, and I'm even learning to fly one. But this allowed me to do something for the very first time in a foreign country, in a beautiful, beautiful place. So yes, it was extremely memorable and so exciting for me. Oh, and look, you can look back. All of those red buildings are our camp, common room, and our cafeteria. So our pilot takes us on a tour of the land. And basically everything you see is claimed here by the ruby mine. Now let me take a minute and explain to you how mining works in Greenland. It's a very different process from the United States. For starters, only a native Greenlandic person can put in a claim for a mine on Greenland, whether it be a gem claim, gold claim, or any other type of claim. Then, if they decide to work this claim as a professional mining site like this ruby mine, basically making it a commercial entity, all of their plans where they're going to drill and what they're going to do have to be known up front. This also includes their reclamation program. They want the ground to go back looking exactly like it did before they started to mine, which means all of the permits and monies needed to make this reclamation plan work have to be put into an escrow account. And side note, that's the little dock area that we landed and drove in from. Now back to the reclamation plan. So if you think about the amount of permits and money that they would need in order to reclaim the land, that is a lot of expense, right? So they better keep their word, otherwise they don't get that money. After the mine is finished, then those funds are used for what they were allocated for. Now a big caveat here is if the mine is to curtail, go into partial curtailment, or lay dormant. Dormancy can allow a mine to lay without use for years, allowing nature to reclaim it, much like abandoned mines in the United States. However, these miners take great pride in what they're doing and want to be able to utilize the land further. So if they don't keep their word, the government won't allow them to continue to get mining claims. I see that as a win-win situation. You do what you say you're going to do, you do it, and then you can move on with something else. Now anyways, let's talk a little bit about the geology. All of this is giant metamorphic rock, and you have these huge phyllite areas or bands running through the rock, much like this white dike running across the hillside. The giant dikes you see are actually what host the rubies, and there are huge bands of them across the land. And what we're flying over right now, that little island, is the entire reason of why there's a ruby mine here. This is called Ruby Island. It's been blessed by royalty, and it's a true honor to land on Ruby Island and witness its beauty. We'll see if we can talk him into landing on it at some point. But for now, we do a great flyover, and we're going to head up to the very top of the mine to look at the drilling program. Now what we're looking out to is the Atlantic Ocean, and this area is the trend for the dikes that hold the rubies. From the exploration of this ruby mine, they've guesstimated approximately 13 kilometers or even longer where the rubies could possibly be hosted. Thus, they keep drilling further and further away, hoping to expand the ruby mine further out. Now, exploration mining here is no joke. In the area that they're mining, they have to be lifted in by a helicopter to this very remote hilltop. All their equipment, including the rig, has to be flown to this hilltop as well. And the miners stay up there in 24-hour shifts, only coming back for necessities or absolute emergencies. And this is what one of those remote camps look like. According to the geologist there at the ruby mine, this is a plentiful area of rubies and has been some of their best core yet. As the crow flies, this is miles away from our initial camp. And there's a 3 to 4 man crew on top of that hill. Now before we get to see the active mine, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the security. When I first got in, I was searched from head to toe, in and out of my shoes, including under my toes and in my socks. This is the ruby processing area where the rubies are hand selected, and this is part of the active mine. Their benches are about 25 foot tall. Now, as we're coming into land, I was fascinated by my lessons of history and geology from the air, but I wanted to get my hands on the rubies. But before we did that, we needed some safety equipment that didn't quite fit, so Ben and I were sure to take pictures and make fun of ourselves. Next, off to another security check before we leave. And then after a quick car ride, we're here. At first glance, I thought I was looking at an amphibolite, but I was wrong. The host rock is a phlogopytite, being made up of phlogopite biotite, corundum, and white plagioclase, green pergicite, and very little amphibolite. Studies have been done on this rock, dating it back to 2.9 billion years old, making these some of the oldest rubies in the world. This is extremely high pressure and high temperature metamorphism. And in this picture, you can get an up-close look at those minerals.
This is really thin sapphires.
You just pulled this out of the ground.
It's a ruby. And that there is a ruby, and it's full of rubies, and it's like, how old are these rocks? 3 billion years old?
Yeah, and they calculate like between 2.7 to 2.5 billion years old for those rubies, for the recrystallization.
Hold
of those
this out of
rubies.
the ground.
So, yeah, hold those rubies in the room for sure.
Nice, there they are. In Ellie's hand, just pull them out the ground. Looking good, eh, lads? Anyway,
So pretty.
and that's Ben. Bye, lads. See you soon, much love.
I got to dig this batch of rubies out of the ground myself. It was so exciting. The feeling was just so amazing. The geologist on site told me if I hadn't have gone over to investigate that area, we wouldn't have been able to see such beautiful specimens because the ruby spotters said that area had been cleaned out, so he thought there was no more left. But due to my keen nose, I was able to go and find more rubies. Now what we're looking at is the area of which they sort the rubies. They actually crush most of the rock and then send it on a conveyor belt. And then the rubies fall off the conveyor belt based on their density. And this is the lot of us in the warehouse. And one of the conveyor belts is behind me. These are all of the rubies that I dug out of the ground myself. Now before they can be gem quality, they actually have to be sent off to be heat treated and stabilized. This cleans up any fractures in the rubies. And you can see how red this piece of corundum shines. Needless to say, I was geeking out and so excited. This is one of the rubies they dug out of the same area I found that clump in. They say its approximate worth is over $100,000 in its raw form to a collector. And looking at the photo from left to right, we have Leo the geologist, myself, and Torbjörn. After we came back from the mine and were vigorously searched, we went in to have lunch and the crew found the massage chairs. Just one of the perks of being a miner on that ruby mine in Greenland.
Seen in Greenland. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's only 4. I thought there was 5, but that's so cool. Oh my gosh, they've got kind of a little one over there with them.
Yes, in case you couldn't see it, I'm seeing Greenlandic reindeer.
Oh, maybe they'll come more this direction. That would be awesome. Oh, they're heading around the rock. It's amazing they can survive off of lichen and moss.
This is the very first time I've seen reindeer before, so I was totally stoked. Like, my day just kept getting better and better. And then after my fun outdoors, I got to check out some of the gigantic pieces of mica that they have pulled out of the ground at this mine. Freaking gigantic books of it. I've never seen mica this big in my life, much less held it. And then, the next morning, we get to go on another helicopter ride. This time, we get to go see the ice sheet. Tor's from Denmark, but he has lived in Greenland on and off for the majority of his life. He is extremely knowledgeable about what's going on, and he was my official tour guide while I was here on the ruby mine. All of the fjords in Greenland were cut by huge glaciers. For thousands of years, the ice has been carving down these rocks and slowly receding. As the ice sheet melts, it floods the fjords with fresh water. Since fresh water and salt water are two different densities, this can change the tides. The glacial loess also fills the fjords, making them look that milky color. And along the sides of the ice-scraped hills, you can see the beautiful dark mafic dikes cutting through the metamorphic rock. And you can see centuries of ice cuts and different tidal lines through the rocks. See the metamorphic bands through the rock? This is all made visible because of the ice and the receding of the glacier. You can see what looks like an alluvial fan up on the side of the hill. This is the lateral moraine left over from the glacier. The thing I geek out on the most is the white metamorphic and dark metamorphic banding through the rock. And did you know the deeper, bluer the ice, the older the ice actually is? The ice sheet here in Greenland can be anywhere from a few meters thick to several kilometers deep. Now, the pilot that we have was telling us a lot about this particular ice sheet because he's been flying this area in Greenland for years. And he's watched with his own eyes how much this glacier has receded. And he was telling us some of the dangers of the glacier receding. As it melts, of course, bigger chunks of ice are calved off and thrown into the ocean. Why is this important? Well, in some areas of Greenland, big chunks of ice like that can actually make islands landlocked. With a boat being the majority of the way how Greenlanders get around, if you have a chunk of ice blocking off your fjord and you can't get around it, you have to wait till the tide pulls it out or it melts, making a helicopter your only way in or out if a helicopter can even get to you. Now, the ice higher up looked all well and good, minus a few yucky little rivers that were flowing through, but the lakes on the ice are what make it extremely dangerous. Although inviting and crystal clear and blue, the water heats up faster than the ice, making the ice melt faster in the middle of the ice sheet. Basically, eventually this could cause bigger chunks of ice to calve off. Now, some of the black stuff that we're seeing in the ice is rock. Most of it, though, is just talus, just dirt that the glacier has pulled along with it. These, however, are giant chunks of rock. And you can see how fast the water is melting out from underneath of the glacier. I guess I was just fascinated with how beautiful and blue it was. As we're leaving, the pilot is showing us some of the scars from the ice, as well as telling us that within the past 10 years, the ice has melted over 300 feet. And the way this was observed was by old shorelines like the Point Out and through the lichen growth. Lichen grows very slowly and can help with age dating. Now, the next thing I get to see is one of the limbs coming out off of the main ice sheet that is completely melted, leaving one of the famous beautiful U-shaped valleys. You'll see going up the U-shaped valley that it almost looks like it has teeth. Well, each one of the teeth marks is where the glacier stopped, receded a little bit, went forward, left a lateral and a terminal moraine, and then kept receding backwards. The geomorphology is absolutely fascinating here, and here you get to see an up-close version of those teeth going up the valley. And a stream is still coming down the valley from the main ice sheet. Now, after we saw that, we were asking really nicely if we could stop off on top of Ruby Island. This area has been visited by the Queen, royal diplomats, and other very, very important people, as well as the very first place to find rubies in Greenland. It's a very famous place. Our pilot grinned and said, "I'm sure we can make time." So literally, like kids in a candy store, we couldn't wait to get out. But of course, let's get our picture taken in the helicopter first, of course. I was super excited to go where rarely a geologist has been. I was enamored and in awe. And I think we are all excited to be there. At first glance, these metamorphic rocks were covered with garnets. Much bigger than the vapor phase garnets I find at home, and way more plentiful. The garnets were literally like sand all over the ground. Beautiful, beautiful dark red gems everywhere. Did I want to pick things up? Yes, I did. Could I? Nope, because you get strip searched basically when you got back to the ruby mine. So I was touching and looking in pictures only. The tour is going to take me over to where they very first found rubies on the island, and where they have done multiple points of exploration. As we walk over to this area, I start seeing that dark green pargasite and the phlogopite. For some reason, I was enamored with those two mineral assemblages before I even saw the rubies. Oh, these are rubies. What? Sorry, totally had to take a picture of that. Those are little rubies. I don't know why I'm so enamored over it. This is what I was calling the ruby chair. Basically, it's where they'd taken giant slices of this rock out to go and test it in the lab. Or I'm just a really, really nerdy person.
Looks okay to be enough.
Oh, yeah.
A lovely little swell to it, that. Like you said, if it was wet as well.
Oh,
If we
yeah.
had Leo here, we'd have his spray gun out, wouldn't
I know, yes. Leo would definitely be spraying all of it. So, of course, I had to get a picture sitting in my ruby throne. And then, yes, pointing at the rubies. You can see how tiny they are, but I loved them.
A balutok.
Say it again.
A balutok.
And that's the name of the ruby mine.
Yeah, that means red.
Absolute dog.
Yes.
Now, remember when we were coming in and I was telling you about the Atlantic Ocean mixing with these tides, basically the mouth of a river? Here are those waves that I was talking about. I guess there's been many a boat that will go at this area in the wrong spot and either hit a rock or get flipped over by these particular waves. I found this insanely crazy. I mean, this is going out into the open ocean. We are headed towards the Atlantic Ocean right now, hoping to hit the right path. You've got to admit, it's a pretty cool phenomenon going on right now. It's as if we're on the shoreline, but this is really hella deep. Give or take hitting the rocks that are sticking up. Now, not that this next part of what happens on our adventure has anything to do with these waves, even though they are pretty freaking cool to watch. Right after we go through this area, we start to have some severe engine trouble.
Wow.
That's all right. Very good captain, pilot. Very good.
Very cool. So we've just been informed by our captain and crew that we have lost an engine on our water taxi. So I don't know exactly what that means for traveling. It's kind of exciting, but at the same time, we still have a long ways to go as far as the things that we're doing. So tomorrow we have a 9 a.m. boat to go to our next little adventure. So as long as we can get back to Nuuk before 9 a.m. tomorrow, we'll be good to go. I just have to get there. I don't know. I'm still in pretty high spirits from going on, 2 helicopter rides and seeing rubies and doing all kinds of stuff. It's been so exciting. But at the same time, like, there's more than just me on the boat, and there's other people that want to get back to their families and, need to get home and do things and not just joyride. So I think right now we're going to a local village that's not too terrible far away to see like what's going on there. See if anything can be fixed or if we're getting another boat ride. That kind of thing. It's kind of cool though. One way or another, get to see more of Greenland. It is also more time that, is taken away from what I came here to do. But that's what you kind of have to plan for too. Things that are unexpected, you just need to roll with the punches and do the best you can.
So we had come from the white dot and we were going to the red dot. Definitely can't pronounce it. So we decided to walk around and tour the area. Luckily, Tor knew all about it.
Yeah.
If you look up there at the top, see that cranium right there?
Yeah, what is it?
That's polar bear. You can tell teeth, it's teeth.
Oh man! So this dude has shot a polar bear then, yes?
I mean, we'll get that again without the phone in it because that's a good point. But once we're
Yeah, you
I'll
bet.
Get a shot of it. I'll get a shot of it. Right, let's just go closer. Look at that.
I mean, this hunter was feeding his family with caribou and kept the antlers as a yard decoration. I definitely approve. And he must have felt real danger from that polar bear. Only native Greenlandic people can kill a polar bear.
So at the moment, I am still here on this little tiny, in this little tiny town. I can't pronounce the name. It's pretty long. It's very, very Greenlandic, but I've done a little tour around the town. It's been adorable. My boat still will not get here until 8 o'clock. I still have like another hour and a half before the boat arrives. Then they're gonna try to fix the engine of the boat that we're on. And then we'll get to go back to Nuuk, which is still 3.5 hours away. So just waiting the time out. A little bit bored, but it's okay. It's beautiful here. And a little tour around town with Torbjörn was great. So just chilling out, and I'll probably go down and look at some of like the shoreline right there because the tide is out. And this whole area is pretty cute and I'm liking it. It's a cute place to be stranded.
Apparently the weather in Nuuk is pretty bad right now, so we could not get a helicopter ride to Nuuk. So we're waiting on the boat. Hopefully it gets here really soon. So we're at the red dot and we need to get all the way up to Nuuk. Thank goodness the boat captain had snacks on the boat, because when we arrived, the little shop just closed. I've made the most out of my time here, checking out the wildlife, the sinking boats, taking myself through a little tour so that I could see a beautiful overlook of the village, and again, so thrilled to be away from everybody. Literally, I was having such a great time that I completely had forgotten about camp. Even though we were broken down and stranded, it was still better than being there. And this is just part of the crazy midnight boat ride that we took. So we're on the boat back to Nuuk, and it's quite interesting so far. Like, the amount of bouncing around has been, you definitely feel like your discs are gonna get compressed and you need a massage, but it's been like a little roller coaster ride. So it's been great fun. The bouncing is real. There's been very interesting rocks and small little areas of the fjord that we've had to go through with hitting rocks, and our crew's been pretty cool. Like, they're laughing with us. The playlist for music has been awesome, and yeah, this is we've got dancing and all kinds of great stuff. And we're all looking forward to pizza when we get back, if the little pizza place is still open. And Torbjörn has said he is going to drive us back to our hotel because we don't have any kind of a taxi to pick us up. Oops, our bad, didn't think about that. Anyways, the sea settled down. I will try to record something when it's a little bit more fun. So yep, we made it back around 12:30 a.m. The pizza place was still open, thank goodness. So we stuffed our faces, tiredly took some selfies, said goodbye to Tor, and went to get a few hours of sleep. And then tomorrow, our 9 a.m. boat ride is going to take us to the next ruby mine. So thank you all so much for being part of this adventure, and I'll see you on the next one. Next time on Elley Knows Rocks, my frozen adventure, I get to hold the largest ruby in the Northern Hemisphere, check out some of Greenland's beautiful culture, and do some last-minute shopping in Nuuk before I head back to camp.